On June 27th, Bruce Springsteen released a monstrous box set simply titled Tracks 2: The Lost Albums. During lockdown, Springsteen found the time to clean up his personal archives and discovered no less than 7 fully completed, yet never released, albums. I also occasionally clean out my attic or storage closet at home, but I never stumble upon 7 fully finished albums. Tracks 2 is the follow-up to the 1998 4-CD box set, Tracks, and contains no fewer than 7 discs and a coffee table book. Because this is such a massive set, the retail prices are on the higher end. That means the very people who often inspire Springsteen's songs about blue-collar working-class life might find this box set a bit out of their budget. Ironically, the folks Bruce sings about probably can't afford a box set like this. Fortunately, Bruce and his record label were kind enough to release a kind of best-of version of the box on just 1 CD or a double LP. This more compact edition comes with a gentler price tag, which is why I went ahead and bought this album, titled Lost and Found: Selections from the Lost Albums. You can compare this way of releasing archival material to how the original Tracks box was handled, along with its condensed counterpart, 18 tracks from 1999. Critics have been full of praise for the Lost albums, especially highlighting the musical styles we don't usually associate with Springsteen. We hear him flirt with country, Mexican mariachi influences, drum loops, and synthesizers, and even hear the rocker Bruce crooning. Fans, however, are divided. After all, there was a reason these albums were shelved at the time, right? If the material wasn't good enough back then, why would it suddenly be good enough now? A very fair question, and one I'll definitely explore further in a future episode. I've had both the original Tracks box and the 18 tracks CD in my collection for years, so I was over the moon when I received the 7 CD Tracks 2 box as a birthday gift. Admittedly, it's a ridiculously expensive item, but a lot of love and care clearly went into it. It's not just something hastily thrown together to make a quick buck off the loyal fans who want to own everything the boss has ever released. So, we'll be taking a deep dive into both box sets in a future episode. But as you can imagine, that takes a bit of time and preparation. I've only just finished listening to all 7 Lost albums from Tracks 2. That's why today, we'll limit ourselves to the smaller siblings of these giant box sets, 18 tracks from 1999, and Lost and Found from 2025. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of We're Only in It for the Music, a brand new YouTube series that takes you on a musical journey through videos about pop, rock, jazz, blues, soul, and funk. In other words, from ABBA to Zappa and everything in between. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll always be the first to know when a new episode drops. But enough of that. Never mind the bollocks. We're only in it for the music. In this episode of Pick One, I present you, the viewer, with 2 choices. But in the end, you're only allowed to pick 1. For some, the decision might be easier than for others. But to help you make a well-informed choice, I'll break down both albums in detail to see which one I personally prefer, and which one I would ultimately choose. Of course, you don't have to agree with my pick at all. In fact, I'm really curious to hear your favorite. So be sure to let me know in the comments below this video. There's no accounting for taste, so that's why I use a rating method where I give every individual song on each album a score between 1 and 10. On top of that, I assess the sound production of the album and take a close look at the sequencing of the tracklist. That last part is especially essential when we're talking about compilation albums like these. Do they flow as smoothly as a regular album, or do they end up sounding more like a random shuffle playlist? And finally, looks matter too. So I'll also be judging the sleeve. Don't judge a record by its cover, they say. But let's be honest, it's the first thing you see when you come across a physical copy, so it does play a role. These 3 aspects make up what I like to call the triple S factor. Before I reveal the winner, I will first take a moment to explain this exact rating method in a bit more detail. So, are you ready? Here comes Pick One, featuring our 2 contenders. 18 tracks versus Lost and Found. The reason I'm putting these two Springsteen releases head-to-head is that both serve as a condensed selection from a larger box set. They both serve the same purpose, which makes them easy to compare side by side, instead of comparing apples to oranges. These single CD versions are very convenient for listeners with a little less time and a smaller budget. By now, both box sets are available to stream digitally, but you won't find 18 tracks or Lost and Found as standalone albums on Spotify. But thank you all so very much for the unsolicited advice to throw my entire CD and LP collection out on the curb, get with the times, and just stream all my music digitally. What a great idea. But I'll hang on to my physical media for just a little while longer. I've listened to both albums in their entirety, and as mentioned, I've rated every individual track. You'll find a Spotify playlist with both albums in the link below this video, so you can join in at home if you'd like. Here's how my score for both albums turned out. Round 1, the track listing, 'cause we're only in it for the music. As you can see, the musical content of Lost and Found scores just slightly higher, with an average of 7.3 compared to 18 tracks, which comes in at 7.1. Now, if you own both extended box sets, you might have picked different songs for these single-disc versions, but this is the musical selection we're working with. Worth noting, 18 tracks actually includes 3 songs that don't appear on the original 4-CD box set. And also interestingly, 18 tracks has more extreme highs and lows, featuring 2 songs that I rated a full 10, but also a few that stall at a 5.5 or 6. My personal 2 standout songs from 18 tracks are Brothers Under the Bridge and The Promise. It's a nice touch that The Promise, the closing songs of 18 tracks, contains the line, "Follow That Dream," while Lost and Found opens with a track titled Follow That Dream. In this way, Springsteen subtly ties the 2 albums together. The Promise is an especially fascinating song, as Bruce also references Thunder Road again here. The dreams and promises of the Born to Run era have faded or been broken, and the optimist has made way for the pessimist. We are entering a road full of gloom and doom. Luckily, not for too long. My personal highlights from Lost and Found are Something in the Well and Adelita. These are classic examples of what Springsteen does best, telling stories that transport you to other worlds, often sparsely arranged, and sometimes without the bombast of the beloved E Street Band. Something in the Well could easily have fit on The Ghost of Tom Joad, and Adelita is one of the tracks from the so-called mariachi album, a musical style that surprisingly suits Bruce quite well. The weakest tracks on 18 tracks, in my opinion, are Seaside Bar Song and Pink Cadillac. Both are no-nonsense tunes about girls and cars. And while I understand that Bruce has always kept the entertainment aspect of his music in mind, after all, people want to dance and be entertained, I usually find this kind of tracks to be among the weaker moments on his albums. And the 2 weakest songs on Lost and Found for me are Repo Man and Detail Man. These are definite skip moments, songs I would have gladly swapped out for 2 hidden gems from the full box set. Round 2, Sound Production. Both records sound great overall, although 18 tracks leans a little bit on demo recordings and live performances for some songs, which can make the album feel a bit disjointed at times. That said, it's not overly distracting in terms of the overall listening experience. Lost and Found explores an even broader range of styles and tones, yet still manages to create a sense of cohesion thanks to its warm production. That's why these albums score an 8 and an 8.5, respectively. A quick update on the score, Lost and Found is currently in the lead, but it's still anybody's game. Round 3, Tracklist Sequencing. Considering both albums are compiled from countless sessions spanning long periods of time, it's actually quite impressive that they still manage to maintain a certain sense of unity. Both albums score a 7.5 for sequencing, offering enough variety while remaining consistent overall. So round 3 ends in a tie. Round 4, The Sleeve. The cover photo of 18 tracks, done in sepia tone, fits the retrospective nature of these archival recordings quite well. However, the square frame it's placed in makes the whole thing feel a bit like a PowerPoint presentation. Not that there's anything wrong with PowerPoint presentations, but for an artist of Springsteen's caliber, the cover could have used a bit more thought and care. The score is a 6.5. Not his worst cover, but definitely not his best either. Now, the cover of Lost and Found. We see an older, visibly weathered Bruce hunched forward on a wooden chair, accompanied by his faithful companion, his Fender Telecaster. The moody black and white photo may not qualify as Springsteen's best album cover either, but it is quite a beautiful shot. And in this case, it's clearly the stronger of the two. This sleeve scores an 8. It's time to tally things up and see which of these two albums comes out on top. All songs have been rated, and the triple S factor has been included in the final score. Here's how that formula works. The total score of all individual song ratings is divided by the number of songs on each album. That average is then multiplied by the number of songs. To that result, we add the score of the triple S factor. Finally, we divide that total by the number of components, meaning the number of songs plus 3 for the triple S, and that gives us the final score. The winner of this very first episode of Pick 1 is Lost and Found, with a final score of 7.4. Though it was almost a photo finish because Lost and Found only scored slightly higher than 18 tracks. So there you have it. My pick is Lost and Found. And that was the very first episode of Pick 1. Which of these two Springsteen albums would you choose? Let me know in the comments below. Because I'm really curious to hear your take, to see which one you picked. Next time, it's a face-off between two piano-playing pop icons, Elton John versus Billy Joel. So, you've got some time to think it over. I can't wait to see which one you will pick. You can also join in and play along with Pick 1, because all the music from this episode and from the rest of the series can be found in the Spotify playlist linked in the description. And we've got more exciting news. You can now follow We're Only In It for the Music on social media, including Facebook and Instagram. You'll find all the links below, so don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. That kind of support is always hugely appreciated. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon. And in the meantime, drop that needle, press play, and remember, we're only in it for the music.